listening to the Video Game and Nerd Trivia Podcast with Tony D. Video Game and Nerd Trivia Podcast, your episodic dose of trivia covering all things video games and nerdy. Now, here's your host, Tony D.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Video Game and Nerd Trivia Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to be going over 3 rounds of 10 questions each of trivia, and typically the topic is a video game topic or a nerd topic, and today's topic is actually going to be Microsoft Codenames. So there will be some video game references in here, but in general, it's just a nerd trivia round. If this is your first time, how it works is I'll be asking you a question, giving you 5 seconds of silence, and then telling you the answer. And again, today's topic is going to be focusing on Microsoft Codenames. Alright, let's play. Round 1, question 1. Windows ME was an operating system a while ago. What was the code name that it used during development? It was just called Millennium. Question 2. The code name is Sun Valley. What was the name of the operating system that used this code name of Sun Valley? This is Windows 11. Question 3. Project Scorpio was the big code name of this video game console released by Microsoft. What was this console? This was the Xbox One X. Question 4. Windows XP, remember that? What was the code name for Windows XP? This was Whistler. Question 5. Windows NT 5.0, a big NT update, that was the code name, but what was the final release called? This was Windows 2000, one of my favorite versions of Windows. Alright, question 6. Project Scarlet. This was another video game console by Microsoft, and the codename was Scarlet. What was the final name? This was the Xbox Series S and Series X. Question 7. Project Xenon. This was another codename for yet another Microsoft video game console. What did Xenon eventually end up being? This became the Xbox 360. Question 8. Windows Vista was the final release of it. What was the name of Windows Vista during development? This is Project Longhorn. I always thought that was a weird name. Question 9. Windows 7 was another big release. The code name used for Windows 7 was named after a city in Austria. What was the code name for Windows 7? This was Vienna. In question 10. They promised that this version of Windows would be the last version of Windows and only have updates after that. There would be no bigger releases after this version of Windows. Of course, that was a lie, but this was codenamed Threshold and Redstone. What was the final release for this? This was Windows 10. Alright, hopefully that was not too hard, but let's get into round 2. Question 1. Project NATO, NATAL, was the name of a new motion capture technology that Microsoft used for video games. What was the final product name? This is the Microsoft Kinect. Question 2. What was the code name for the very first Xbox? This one's interesting. It was actually codenamed DirectXbox because it's a reference to the graphics API that Microsoft uses, DirectX. Actually did not know this until I wrote this question from researching that that's what it was from. Question 3. The Xbox One S had a code name that referenced the large capital city of Alberta, Canada. What was the code name for the Xbox One S? This was Edmonton. Question 4. Spartan, as in Spartans from Halo, this was the code name for one of the Microsoft applications that helps you browse the internet. This was Microsoft Edge. Speaking of browsing the internet, question 5. Internet Explorer 1 shares its codename with one of the busiest airports in the world. What was the code name for Internet Explorer 1? This was O'Hare. Question 6. Sharing its name with a musical, Windows 95 had this codename. What was the codename? The codename was Chicago. Question 7. The codename was Assistant. What did this product eventually become? So it eventually became Cortana, which is the voice assistant. And of course, Cortana is based on the character in Halo. Question 8. Cornerstone is the name of a Windows disk encryption feature designed to protect data by providing encryption for entire volumes. What is the name of this feature now? This is BitLocker. Question 9. Microsoft Edge also had another codename that shares its name with the city in which Disneyland calls home. What was the codename? It was Anaheim. And question 10. Darwin is the codename for this tool that helps you bring new applications into your system. What tool is this? This is Windows Installer. Alright, that was the end of round 2. Let's head into the final round. Question 1. Dorado was the codename for this software that's obsolete now that used to be used for managing music on an external device. What was this software? This was the Zune PC client. Question 2. Kuma was the codename for this product, which also shares its name with one of the main characters' last names on Friends. What was this product? This is Microsoft Bing, the search engine. Question 3. The codename Argo was given to this hardware product, which was supposed to be the iPod killer, but ended up being killed by iPod. What was this product? This was, of course, the Microsoft Zune. Question 4. Red Dog. This was the codename for Microsoft's cloud services. What is that called today? This is Microsoft Azure. Question 5. The codename was Marvel, and this is a classic version of MSN. What was the name of this product? This was Microsoft Network. Question 6. Ren, or Stimpy, or Ren with W-R-E-N, was the codename for this email client. What is the name of the email client today? This is Microsoft Outlook. So Stimpy was merged into the word Ren, and then it later became Ren W-R-E-N. So Ren and Stimpy, of course, are referencing the characters Ren and Stimpy. And then Ren, W-R-E-N, is a reference to Christopher Wren, the architect of St. Paul's Cathedral. Question 7. Rincon was the codename for this internet browsing tool from Microsoft. What was this called? This was Internet Explorer 7. Question 8. Alexandria is the code name for this defunct online store. Probably defunct because the hardware it supported is no longer in service. What was the name of this online store? This was the Zune Marketplace. Question 9. Photon was the code name for the hardware that Microsoft worked on to try to compete with iPhone and Android. What did the Photon end up being? It ended up being a failure. Just joking. Well, I mean, it's not really joking because it's the Windows Phone 7, which despite it being very snappy, it was still a failure. And the final question is question 10. Hudson Valley is the code name for an operating system planned for release in 2024. What is the name of this operating system? This is Windows 12. Alright, that was a lot of questions, and hopefully you learned something or had some fun remembering these code names. I learned a lot writing these questions and looking at these code names, and some of them are pretty funny, like the whole Ren and Stimpy one. But yeah, that's the end of the episode, and if you like our podcast, please rate us on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, anywhere you listen to this podcast. It will help us out, it will help other people discover the show as well. Thank you so much again for listening. You can always reach out to us on social media. Send us a message, send us some topic suggestions. We're on Instagram at VGNT Podcast 1, we're on TikTok at VGNT Podcast, we're on Twitter or X at VGNT Podcast, we're on Facebook at VGNT Podcast. But yeah, until next time, Trivia on!